Hello, and welcome back to our channel, American Ultra Stock. Here we are again, and you can see on Braden's background, today's topic is a very exciting one. I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of casuals to turn an eye to our sport, our beloved sport, soccer. But we saw that during midweek, Greg and his roster for the Nations League, which is the main one really, but now today, the roster was dropped for the Olympic camp. So this is the very last camp that I believe they're going to try to adjust and see who cuts it or not. But it was a 22-man squad, which is already mimicking what will actually happen in the Olympics, and bar the overage players. We'll get into that later. Straight to the point, there is no requirement from FIFA, because FIFA is not involved in organizing the competition. No obligation whatsoever to have 3 goalkeepers. So Braden, look into the 2 goalkeepers that got called up. We're going to analyze this position by position, by the way, guys. So stay tuned to see our takes. Starting with the goalkeepers. Patrick Schulte from the Crew. Everybody knows him. Won everything at MLS. And Gaga Slonina, who is the wonder kid that we hope is going to step up to the main team in the future. What do you think about those call-ups?
I think with only taking 2 goalkeepers, it's the right choices. I'm happily surprised that Slonina was released. In the past, Oakland have had some issues with releasing him, but I'm pretty sure Chelsea might have stepped in here since he is on loan from them and been like, okay, look, we're going to release him for the Olympics. That part of the obligation of this loan is to give him these opportunities. So it's great to see him there. Hopefully he will be the starter for the Olympics, just like he was in the U20 World Cup last summer. And for Patrick Schulte, like you said, he's been great in MLS for the Crew. He's even been scouted by Arsenal recently. Some news came out. I don't know about all that. I don't think he's even as good as Matt Turner was when he made the move. But on his side, he is a lot younger, still only 22 years old. So who knows? Maybe they could sign him, put him on a couple loans, have him as the backup because Ramsdale will probably want to leave. I don't know. But I think for this camp, those are the 2 right choices. Chris Brady, it's a little interesting, the situation with the Fire. From what I've heard, the Fire weren't even asked about Chris Brady or Brian Gutierrez, who we'll get into later down the roster. But that's interesting that even though Brady has not been released in the past because the Fire are a poverty club and they don't care about any of this stuff, the fact that the U.S. clearly views Slonina and Schulte ahead of Brady, either that or they just didn't bother because this is the final camp before the summer, before the last one in June, before the Olympics. They're probably prioritizing the players who are more likely to be released, and since the Fire have shown no willingness to release their players in the past, there's not really a point in trying.
Yeah, I mean, there are some sources out there saying that this roster it's heavily implied that there was a long time consultation and through analysis of who's more likely to get released during the summer. So this should be the closest that we're going to get to the actual roster because they consulted all these clubs. And that's when I think what you said makes a lot of sense about Chelsea stepping in and basically telling you, and you have to release him. This is what we plan. And it's nice that this is really the final preparation and things are taken into shape. I agree with you. I think that it's nice that Schulte gets this shout. I don't think that he's Arsenal level, but hey, he is a lot younger. So maybe this, even just being a part of the roster, being a part of the Olympics, propels him. That's something to his CV, and maybe he can get a nice move in the summer. Who knows? But now we move into the defenders. This is an area where, again, we will discuss towards the end the overage players thing. I think this is one area of the pitch where we desperately need one overage center back. I'm going to read out the names and I'm going to go to you to have your analysis, Braden. But we are going to be represented for this roster with George Campbell from Montreal Impact, Max Dietz, who we've been really high on from Gorger Fürth in Germany, playing second division, fighting for a promotion to Bundesliga, Nathan Harriel from the Union Academy, and I'm sure you're happy about that one, Brian Reynolds with Will Sterlo, John Tolkien, Jonathan Tompkinson with Bradford, and Caleb Wiley, who everybody knows as well. What do you think about those picks? Are they the right ones? What would you have changed?
I think for starters, based on the makeout, the complexion of this roster, and actually the other 2 Olympic camp rosters that we've seen in the past in 2023, they're consistently bringing 3 center backs, which says to me it's a perfect sign that one, if not 2, of the overage players will be center backs, because realistically, I think in a 22-man roster, you need 4. So, and the fact that they brought an extra winger as well, it seems like a perfect spot to use that fourth center back. I'll start with the center back since I'm already talking about them. Max Dietz, like you said, He's by far and away the best one. Honestly, he's the only one that I actually would trust in the Olympics out of the age-eligible players. I think there's a lot of competent overage players that we could call, whether they're with the Copa America roster or not, that I would fully trust in this tournament. But for the underage players, Dietz is probably the only one who I have full confidence in. Brandon Craig, if he had gotten minutes and was here, maybe. But honestly, I think it's kind of warranted that he's not here just due to his club situation the past couple of years. George Campbell has been solid for CF Montreal. I don't have really any complaints with him being here. I don't think he has a bright future, to be honest. I think he'll just be another MLS lifer. Will he get to the levels of Miles Robinson, Walker Zimmerman? Who knows? But for this camp, I mean, it kind of makes sense that he's here. Tompkinson, I've been critical in the past of the level he's playing at, but I will say when he is at that level this year and last season, he has looked very good in League Two. He helped Stevenage get promoted to League One last season. Now he's back in League Two with Bradford on another loan from Norwich. I think he's playing really well. Honestly, I think next season is going to be a big one for him, whether he is to stay at Norwich or perhaps seek a permanent transfer to a lower level championship club or maybe a League One team to try to push up the pyramid finally. So considering the options, I think the center back pool is good. I'm looking forward to see who the overage center back is, or hopefully two. Honestly, I would bring two based on this pool. And then for the fullbacks, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's been the same four fullbacks really for a while now. Brian Reynolds seems to be the locked-in starter right back. No complaints there. He was solid, if not unspectacular, at the Gold Cup over the summer. I think due to our positional depth there. Joe Scally is eligible, but he'll be with Copa America. I don't think he'll get released for both competitions. So Reynolds and Harriel make sense here. I'd love to see more union representation as well. And for the left backs, John Tolkien and Caleb Wiley, whether you think they're the best two or not, they've been with this group since, I think, Camp 1. It's been them forever. It's going to continue to be them. I would have liked to see Jonathan Gomez over Wiley, but he wasn't released by Melendez, which does show that maybe, since they did at least try to call him up, maybe they view him ahead of Wiley. Which I think is good. I think he's a better player. And the fact that he's going back to Real Sociedad in the summer means that they might want to release him, see what they have in him at a different competition. Honestly, I'd rather have George Bello here too than Wiley. I think he's more proven, another Atlanta United product. But the fact that he hasn't been to any of the camps, he's not going to be in the roster realistically.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's an encouraging sign that Jonathan Gomez didn't get released. And I mean this with the best of intentions, because I think that even if Real Sociedad, let's be realistic, they're not going to play him, they might view him as an asset to loan out. And honestly, I think I agree with you. I think that Wiley's here solely on the lack of options, really, on the age group. I think that it's kind of staled, really. He's not really a natural left back. If we're going to play with a natural left back, I think that Wiley's future, it's not going to be really in that position. So I agree with you. I think that this is a good group. I think that Tompkinson makes a lot of sense for the age group. I mean, who else is there that we managed to keep in the U.S.? Shout out to Tyler Vinden there. And honestly, I think it's fine. Moving on to what I think is the strongest area of the pitch, we had a lot of good options that were left out. We have Paxton Aronson, we have Gianluca Buzio, Daniel Edelman, Jack McGlynn, Aidan Morris, and Tanner Tessman, the best player of all time for Venezia, the Venezia captain. But Buzio and Tessman have captained this group, so it's no surprise to see them there. I'm happy to see Paxton back because he's one of the main reasons why we even qualified to this competition. I don't know if people tend to forget on that. But anyways, your takes, Braden. Do you agree with this? Anything you would have changed? Any other names that you think missed out on this one?
Oh, for starters, 2 more union products, so already a win there. But yeah, I mean, you said it. That was my first takeaway as well. The midfield has been the strongest position group in this pool, and it continues to be. And I think we've actually seen that now with the senior national team as well. Not only this up-and-coming generation, but the current generation that we have with the A-team. I think the midfield is far and away the strongest group at both levels, which is nice to see some continuity there. Speaking on Daniel Edelman, I think he's the surprise inclusion here. I would have rather had Rokas Pukstas. He wasn't released, unfortunately, by Hajduk Split, which is concerning because I think he definitely fit this team a lot better. I don't see the point in having 3 6s really with this roster. With Tessman and Morris there, I think both of them are pretty much locks for this team, whether you think they should be or not. Aidan Morris, I don't know. I think for this level, he's probably fine. Honestly, I would have also rather had Josh Atencio here. I'm not sure if he wasn't released. It's possible that the Sounders didn't release him, but from what I heard, it was a possibility that Obed Vargas was called up to the U20s and they would have only let one of them go. That also didn't happen. So maybe both of them were called. The Sounders didn't release either. Maybe neither of them were called. We really don't know as of now, but assuming that Asensio wasn't called, I would have rather seen him here. I think he's been having a better season in the same league. He's a little bit older than Edelman, but still age eligible, and I think he'd be a better fit for this competition. Another notable, not really a snub because he's injured, but Benjamin Kramaski has been with this team for a while now. I think he was at both of the previous camps, but I think his injury may have cost him a spot at the Olympics. Even if he is back on time, I can't see him breaking into this group, to be completely honest. Edelman's spot is probably the only one up for grabs, but who knows if they'll bring an overage midfielder as well. I really can't see him breaking back into this team, which is a shame for him because he was basically locked in before the injury. I'm disappointed for Cole Bassett. If you guys know, he's one of my favorites, the Colorado Rapids man. I would have rather had him here over Edelman as well, over Cade Cowell as well, one of the wingers, since we have an extra one on the roster. And then finally, Zach Booth and Quinn Sullivan also not making it. I think their situation's kind of similar. They've been playing very, very well this season, but a little too small of a sample size, with it being Booth's first professional season. And Quinn Sullivan last year wasn't too great, didn't really get too many opportunities. So I can't really see either of them making the squad, even though maybe if the positional depth was a little bit worse, they'd probably have a good chance.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, just to mention, not to defend, but really what I think that Mitrovic was going with was to possibly have more sixes. And even though we don't have a real destroyer, these are all good ball players as well. But since we have a very fragile backbone, let's be honest, the center back position isn't the strongest one. I think that he was probably looking into that. I don't know what the team's going to look like. The games have been really hard to watch during this for this age group. Hopefully they'll be televised. Apparently it will be televised when we play against Guinea. But I agree with you. I think that this is a really good roster. Edelman's a surprise inclusion, and I would have liked to see another creator instead of him there. Nothing against Edelman. I just think that for the quality that we have, how much we would keep possession with the players that we have available, would have been nice to see someone like Bassett. I agree. Now, these guys would be progressing the play to the forwards that we have called up. We have called up 7 forwards. Again, it's always hybrid. I mean, take it what you will. This is what USSF names as the forwards, but I'm just going to read it out loud. Esmir Bajraktarevic, everybody needs to start getting used to saying his name. The guy is such a promising player. We've been high on him for such a long time as well here on the channel. Him, Cade Cowell. Then we have Johan Gomez, Diego Luna, Duncan Maguire, Kevin Paredes, and Griffin Yao. I mean, a lot of good players there. Some iffy names. It does make things obvious that we are missing a striker here. And again, Pepe is eligible. We'll get into that later. What do you think about the forwards called up here, Braden? I know you have very strong opinions about one of them.
Yeah, I'll just start with a point that you actually made about the midfield. I think the lack of not the lack of sixes, the abundance of sixes, and the fact that there's only one real 10 in that group, Paxton Aronson, I think that's also due to the fact that a lot of the wingers are very versatile. We've got Diego Luna and I think Esmir Bajraktarevic. They can kind of come into the midfield, also play that 10 role if needed. There's also Brian Gutierrez, who I mentioned earlier, that wasn't included in this roster, although I think he's definitely talented enough to be here. Definitely more talented than some, like Cowell. But yeah, I'll start with the wingers since I'm already talking about them. I'm so happy that Griffin Yao is finally getting his chance. He's earned it with his play at Westerlo. Will he make the final roster? Honestly, I don't think the signs are looking too good for him, just because this is his first camp with the team. They're giving him basically this one chance. If you impress, you'll be here. But the fact that Taylor Booth is also injured, and I think if he's back in time and fully healthy, he's basically guaranteed a spot to probably start on the right wing. Maybe Esmir gives him some competition, but the fact that there's still Booth coming back and the overage players as well, we still don't know what they're going to do with that. Griffin Yao is going to really need to impress here. And especially the fact that there's 5 wingers in this camp, I think it's because there's a lot of depth in the winger position. There's a lot of talent. Basically, one of these guys is for sure going to be cut. Another one probably going to be cut for Taylor Booth, like I mentioned. So really, it's giving all these guys their final opportunity. Hopefully, Griffin Yao can take it. But the fact that he hasn't been with the team as of yet is not a good sign for him. Moving on to Esmir, like you said, probably the most talented player here, despite his young age. He appears to have already graduated from the U20s, even though he never really played for us at that level. There was a U20 camp. The roster was released today as well as we record this, and he wasn't there. He could have easily been here, but clearly USSF wants him at the Olympics, and for good reason. So it'll be interesting to see if he does ever play with the U20s. I would like to see him there in the World Cup in 2025, just dominate everyone, try to win us the trophy there. But it's a great sign for his development that he's here. And the final point about the wingers, the fact that there's 5 of them, like I mentioned, there's going to be some cuts when it gets to the final roster, and this really doesn't bode well for the people that aren't here. Brian Gutierrez and Bernard Kamungo, who have been with the group in the past, their chances, honestly, I'm considering them as 0. Gutierrez, we don't even know if he'd be released by the Fire. Like I said, they suck at releasing players for no reason. They're not even a good team. They're not challenging for anything. I think their front office might just hate the U.S. I don't know. And honestly, Gutierrez, if he considers Mexico after these snubs, I wouldn't even blame the guy. He's definitely talented enough to play for both national teams at some point. Kamungo, it's kind of unfortunate. He has such a great story, but honestly, I just don't think he's as good as the other players here, and I think that showed. He was with Camp Cupcake, but he didn't really do too much. He had one costly mistake that I think actually led to the Slovenia goal, and that seems to have put Marko Mitrovic off of him, and honestly, I can't blame them. And then Kevin Paredes as well. I'm glad he's here and not sitting on the bench with the A team. I don't really think being in Nations League would be beneficial to him. Maybe getting him integrated more into the A team because he does have a future there. But I think playing and being a star for the Olympic team would be a lot more beneficial for him, especially in the summer. I hope to see him there. And then for the strikers, like you mentioned, there's a lack of options here, honestly. Duncan Maguire seems to be the guy. I'm sure we'll call up an overage striker, especially due to the amount of strikers in form we have. I mean, we talked about this when we talked about the A-team roster. We have Brandon Vasquez, Haji Wright, and Jordan Pefok all in form that weren't even called up. Pefok isn't even really being viewed as a snub. That just shows how much depth we have. I'm sure one of them will be an overage option here. I don't really think we could go wrong with any of them. Personally, I'd hope to see Brandon Vasquez, but we'll get into that more when the Olympics do get closer and when the overage players for the June camp are released. But yeah, Duncan Maguire seems to be the backup option behind whoever that overage player will be. Johan Gomez is just here to fill space. He's another one who can kind of play as a 10. I noticed that these youth teams really like the idea of a false 9. We saw Paxton Aronson play there a lot during the U20 CONCACAF Championship that we qualified for the Olympics in. And it worked very well. Maybe they're hoping that Johan Gomez can do something similar. But realistically, if we're going to call up another striker, I don't think whoever gets this spot will be in the final roster. But I would have liked to see Damian Downs or Kava Zahira Lislam get a chance here just to show what they have. Some more recognition for them because I think they've been playing a lot better than Johan Gomez at a higher level as well.
Yeah, I'll just say on one thing that you mentioned about Paredes being with this group, I think it's also more beneficial. But also, again, like we said in the beginning of the video, this is a good indicator of who's actually going to get released by their clubs. And German clubs have historically been really, really good about releasing their clubs for the Olympics. It's a cultural thing. They said it in 2016 when they set their national team. They released players that were from Brazil, like Paulinho and other players in Germany as well to represent their country. So it's an encouraging sign to see Paredes here. Nice to see Paxton as well, who wasn't released in the past when he was with Frankfurt, but it's getting closer, so it's nice. And you mentioned about Gutierrez picking Mexico. You forgot to talk about the guy that I think you would have the biggest emphasis out of this group, Cade Cowell, the star. What do you think about him being there?
Honestly, I just forgot to mention him because he's an afterthought for me. I really hope he doesn't make the final roster. I forgot to mention Luna as well. I rate Luna higher as well as the other wingers. Honestly, I don't think either of them matter too much in the context of this because they'll both be trying to fight for a backup spot behind Kevin Paredes. Diego Luna might also be trying to compete with Paxton for minutes at the 10, maybe even Johan Gomez as well as Mir. There's a lot of players who could be versatile and play there. Hopefully Cade Cowell isn't at the Olympics, although I will admit it would be very funny to see Chivas fans' reaction to seeing one of their players represent the United States at the Olympics, which in Mexico is also a very important competition. So that would be funny, but hopefully he's not there.
Yeah, and we talked about the guys that could get released or not. But that's actually, sorry guys, it's just teasing for another video when we make our prediction for the roster, who we think is going to be a part of that group, being an overage player, adding that experience that's needed. For now, this is what we have: the forwards, the midfielders, defenders. We'll put the timestamps as you guys have been watching on the video. Left some numbers for the guys throughout the season so you can make up your mind if it was the best roster available or not. And let's hope that they do well. It's going to be televised. We're also going to try to put out on our Instagram, on Twitter. Follow us there as well. It's going to be on the description. Links to watch it if there are any. And we'll see you next time. Like, share with your friends, and comment down below the best options of this roster and the guys that you think could have made the cut but ultimately didn't. We'll see you next time.